Mexico is a beautiful country with some exotic tourist attractions, and it's home to many honest, hardworking citizens. Sharing a border with the United States implies that Mexico experiences some of the technological innovation from God's own country. However, Mexico has one problem: cartels. Since their inception, cartels have been at the head of several drug and criminal operations taking place all over Mexico. While everyone feels the impact one way or the other, not many know what a cartel is like on the inside. In today's video, we will tell you all there is to know about the inner workings of Mexican cartels. History of the drug trade. To properly understand the inner workings of the Mexican cartels, it's important that we take a trip down memory lane to the point where it all began. During the Prohibition era, American bootleggers received most of their supply of contraband alcohol from their Mexican partners. The illegal supply operation continued till the end of Prohibition in 1933. Consequently, the start of illicit drug trafficking commenced at the end of Prohibition. Along with the popularization of illicit drug trafficking came the creation of a handful of cartels in Mexico. These criminal organizations were set up to carry out drug trafficking operations. In the period before the 1960s and 70s, Mexican cartels transported marijuana and other illicit drugs in small amounts. All that changed at the end of the 1960s. The cartels became more standardized and began large-scale operations. The Guadalajara cartel, led by Miguel Angel Felix, worked with Pablo Escobar during the 70s and 80s to export large-scale amounts of cocaine into the United States. They transported cocaine and other harmful drugs, such as heroin, by land from Mexico to the United States. Contrary to what many hoped, the collapse of Pablo Escobar's cartel didn't stop the trade in Mexico. The Mexicans had become established and recruited many law enforcement officers at the border to facilitate their business. So they remained formidable traffickers and expanded their business to the worldwide markets. The continued rise of the cartels came through murder, bribes, and advanced smuggling styles, especially the use of tunnels. The Mexican drug trade is one of the country's biggest exports, with over $1 trillion worth of drugs being transported across the borders into the United States in the last decade. Despite efforts from both the United States and Mexico, drugs have continued to flow through the border. How do cartels operate? Although there are many cartels in Mexico, their general mode of operation is similar. Hence, they are run in identical manners. Most of them even have the same level of organization. The highly formal hierarchy that is visibly defined in most cartels displays the authority and responsibility of each member of the organization. For example, the Sinaloa cartel, led by El Chapo, dominated the Mexican drug market for a long time because it had clearly defined levels of operation within. Typically, cartels have members carefully placed in positions where they are most effective. Their structure is best described as a vertical pyramid, with the head of the cartel at the top of the pyramid. An excellent example of a pyramidal cartel structure is the Tijuana cartel. Within the cartel, instructions from the leader flow down the hierarchy to the foot soldiers, or corner boys. Another type of structure within Mexican cartels is the horizontal structure. Cartels with this structure don't have ranked positions. Therefore, authority for decisions flows across several parts of the organization, rather than downward in a formal chain of command like the military or government. Cartels with this structure are capable of surviving longer and have more expansive operations. An excellent example is the Sinaloa cartel. After the global expansion to over 45 countries, the cartel abandoned the vertical pyramid structure for the horizontal one. Now that you know what the leadership pattern is like, you're probably wondering where the members come from and how they are selected. Well, we were just getting to that. Recruitment in cartels is quite tricky for obvious reasons, but despite this fact, new members are recruited regularly. This is because of the demand for new foot soldiers, assassins, and drug mules. Most cartels have identical recruitment strategies. They recruit the locals and pay them more money than their honest living can give them. Among cartels, there is a high demand for new members to not only grow the business, but also to keep up with the competition. With this in mind, it's easy to see why, when taking in recruits, cartels don't care about age. As long as you're willing to join, you are welcome. Sometimes ruthless cartels even force the locals to join or face execution. Although cartels are formed with the intention of drug trafficking, many of them have branched into other ventures. To generate more revenue, some cartels now engage in human trafficking, arms sales, hired killings, and provision of security from rival cartels. In recent years, some cartels have even resorted to running restaurants and opening hotels. The reason for this legitimate expansion is to escape scrutiny by security agencies who question the leader's source of wealth. The need to avoid scrutiny by the authorities and the general public birthed the need to clean drug money. In the drug trade, cleaning drug money means finding a way to legitimately introduce money earned from drug sales into the economy without arousing suspicion. There are many ways to accomplish this task. For example, some establish hotels, logistics companies, and shopping malls. They then include the drug money in their earnings and pass it off as legitimate earnings. Cleaning their money means that these cartels pay taxes, employ locals, and improve the general standard of living among the masses. As a result of this, some of them are seen as heroes by their communities. In addition to this, there are several other reasons why Mexican cartels are hard to stamp out. One of them is that most cartel leaders have ties with local politicians and are involved in local politics. They do this in a bid to appear legitimate and upright in the eyes of the public. Also, these drug lords employ the services of their friends in high places to oppose the approval of any policies and laws that might obstruct their illegal activities. When Mexican cartels are not discussing new ways to traffic drugs or humans, or monitoring other business interests, they are most likely fighting for territory with rival gangs. The constant struggle for trade zones and drug routes within and outside Mexico is a common feature of the drug trade. Typically, these gang wars are brutal and they involve everyone in the hierarchy. More often than not, these drug wars also affect innocent citizens, as they sometimes become collateral damage. Effects on people. One thing you can't separate from organized crime is violence and murder. Cartels shoot first and ask questions later. The siege mentality of getting your enemy first means constant drug wars among Mexican cartels. The conflict between drug cartels in Mexico began after the arrest and incarceration of Felix Gallardo in 1989. Before his arrest, he ran the cocaine business in the Latin American nation. Also, he founded the first Mexican cartel, the Guadalajara Cartel, after allying with existing criminal gangs. After his arrest, the alliance collapsed, and leaders formed their cartels to fight for trafficking routes and territory. To this day, the biggest effect of the drug trade in Mexico is the loss of human capital, which usually occurs as a result of the violent nature of their activities. According to reports, over 80% of these attacks involved civilians, including children. States such as Guerrero, Nuevo León, Tamaulipas, and Sinaloa are the most affected. Journalists and media outlets are not left out. The elevated levels of violence related to organized crimes have negatively impacted the way local journalists operate in the country. Mexican cities such as Tijuana and Acapulco are considered one of the most dangerous places to practice journalism in the world. Harassment and threats neutralize many media outlets, and those who try to resist are murdered in gruesome styles. Consequently, many journalists have fled the country because of fear for their lives and that of their loved ones. If you thought foreigners were immune to the evils of Mexican cartels, well, you couldn't be farther from the truth. Migrants are kidnapped, ransomed, or murdered by cartels. Some cartels force migrants to work for them, so forced labor is prevalent in cartel-controlled cities. Those who refuse are killed and buried in unmarked graves scattered throughout the country. The most devastating effect of the drug trade is seen on children. Some of them in cartel-controlled areas are forced to abandon their childhood to carry arms and work for the cartels. Some of the locals recruit children and train them to defend their villages against attacks from cartels. Whichever side they are fighting on, the harsh truth remains that children are being forced to take up arms. With that, we have come to the end of the video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.